Hi everyone, my name is Deepak and I welcome all of you to the YouTube channel of Connecting Minds. Well, the topic for today's discussion is something which is very interesting and something which is doing the rounds for many days on many media channels and news blogs. And that, of course, as you can see on the screen, is the India-China standoff or the India-China tussle. To begin the discussion, let's start from scratch. Well, China is the world's third largest country and it has regular water and land disputes with many countries, be it South Korea, North Korea, Malaysia, be it Tibet, Bhutan, Nepal, and of course with India. However, with India, China has land disputes spread across 20 different regions and this has been going on right from 1980s. In 2019, it was reported that there were 660 LAC violations and 108 aerial violations. What exactly is LAC? LOC is a line of control between India and Pakistan, and LAC is a line of actual control between India and China. But the fact here is that unlike the LOC, which is clearly defined and demarcated, LAC, there's no publicly available image for the border between India and China. And there's some sort of overlapping territory between India and China, which is the actual and the only reason for this tussle. Well, an important point to note here is the fact that there's not been a single gunshot from either sides of India and China in the last 50 years. Now, there could be multiple reasons for this tussle. The main reason, of course, is the disputed area between India and China. But what about the fact that China is going through an economic slowdown and maybe they want to divert the attention of their people to the border disputes between India and China? I mean, everyone is blaming China for the pandemic and it's a known fact that China is moving forward with an arrogant mind frame. Well, the strategy adopted by China is called salami slicing, which basically means that you're encroaching small parts of land every day, every week, every month, every year. And by the time you realize they have encroached and they have acquired most of the land. Coming to the main body of our discussion, what exactly happened across the LOC? This can be categorized into 4 parts. You have events which took place around the Pangsong Lake, Eastern Ladakh, Hot Springs, and even Galvan Valley. Now, this lake is quite famous for the fact that most of you would have seen the Bollywood movie called 3 Idiots, in which the last bit of the movie was shot on the shores of this Pangsong Lake. Of course, it was shot on the Indian side of the Pangsong Lake, and you have the Chinese side of the lake also. So on 5th May, the first standoff happened, or the first clash happened between the Indian and Chinese troops. 5 days later, that is on 10th May, the two sides were involved in fist fights and stone pelting. As a result of this, 72 of our Indian soldiers were injured and many of them were airlifted to the nearby hospitals. Now, China achieved its objective and it acquired around 60 kilometers square of area around the Pangsong Lake. 60 kilometers square, if you convert it into meters, it comes to approximately 360 crore meters of land, which is quite big. Eastern Ladakh. 21st of May, India was in the progress of constructing a road in Eastern Ladakh for better connectivity, and this road was being constructed in an area which clearly belongs to the country. But the fact is that China claims that this is still in disputed territory and they moved around 800 to 1,000 Chinese soldiers to this area to stop the progress of the road construction. As a result of this, again China achieved its objective and acquired around 20 kilometers square of land in Eastern Ladakh. That comes to around 40 crore meters of area around Eastern Ladakh. Many retired army personnel state that this was the most dangerous situation since the 1962 war. Just imagine that someone comes into your piece of land that you own and manage, of course you will retaliate. So to stop this further advancement by the Chinese troops, Indian soldiers were placed in eastern Ladakh to stop any sort of further progression by China. Hot Springs and the Galvin Valley. Well, on 24th of May, another 1,000 Chinese soldiers came in and occupied Hot Springs. And on 15th June, they came in and took positions in the Galvin Valley. Now, Galvin Valley is quite advantageous for the fact that it is on a height and you can always monitor your enemies coming in and their movements. This is a part which clearly belongs to India, but China again claims that this is still disputed territory. This was a very sad day for our nation for the fact that we lost 20 of our soldiers in a 6-hour battle. 3 of them died on the spot, and reports say that most of them were thrown off the ridge by the Chinese soldiers. With many agreements signed with China, there is a particular clause that disallows usage of firearms between India and Chinese soldiers. And therefore, China used batons wrapped in barbed wire and clubs with embedded nails to attack these Indian soldiers. Well, from the other side, there was no reports of how many Chinese soldiers died in the clash, but a US agency says that 35 is the number, including a commanding officer who died in the clash. On 20th of June, India removed this restriction of firearm usage in their agreements with China and provided ammunition to all the Indian troops placed at the LAC. What is India's take on this? India said that they will go ahead with the road construction process, and they've recruited additional 12,000 workers who came in from Jharkhand and also increased their wages to 170% higher. The road construction is scheduled to finish by the 5th of July. What is my take on this? Well, there were 5 bilateral agreements signed with China right from 1993 to 2013. But the fact is that these agreements were deeply flawed because no solid conclusions could be derived out of it. And talks, of course, were of no use. Sonam Wangchuk, who is an Indian scientist and environmentalist and whose life was portrayed in the movie called 3 Idiots, first came up with the idea of boycotting Chinese products and services. All of us can take baby steps in boycotting Chinese services. Let's say from the software side, we start by uninstalling Chinese apps, which means TikTok will have to go from all of your phones. From the hardware side, we can stop buying Vivo and Oppo phones, which are quite famous in the market now. But I don't know how feasible it is to completely boycott those devices which has many parts imported from China. Let's take the example of the video, the device with which I'm shooting this video. It'll have 100 different parts imported from China. How is it possible to completely boycott them? It's a question mark. What about those investments into Indian startups, those major chunks of investment by Chinese companies? You take Byju's, you take Oyo, you take Paytm, which has around 70% of the investment from China. How feasible is it to ask them to shut down or not use their apps? It's a question mark. Now, the fact is that we are heavily reliant on China. If you see the figures, around $70 billion worth of imports into India as compared to only $16 billion of exports to China. So this difference, this gap, this trade deficit of $57 billion is the indicator that we are heavily dependent on Chinese goods and services. So this was a small video on the India-China standoff. I hope I've been able to make things clear on this topic through this discussion. Do support us. If you like the video, click on the like button. You can also share the entire video with your family and friends. If you want to receive constant notifications and updates whenever we upload videos on a weekly basis, do subscribe to our channel and hit on the bell icon to receive notifications. I really enjoyed making this video, doing the research, and thank you, and hope to see you soon next week. Thank you.